Welcome back, everyone, and happy holidays to Fusion Auth Townhall version 0.9. I'm excited to introduce our guest. This is our VP of Marketing, Emily. Hello,
Hey,
Emily.
hello, Alex, and happy holidays. We're in the, festive theme here today.
I know, I'm so glad you were on board for going festive for this one. That's great.
Yeah, I had it in the closet and thought I'd pull it out. So
That's really cool. I'm super stoked. I like shooting this right before the holidays. It's kind of a fun one because it's not so technical. It's kind of more of like so the title, I forgot to mention it, is Booth Mastery AWS Reinvent Success. And basically
Mm,
what we're going to be talking about is kind of just how to run a booth for a large event like this and what it was like for us to run it. And Emily's got all kinds of like cool slides and stuff like that. But before we get into that, I want to talk with Emily just to get to know you a little more and let our audience get to know you. I know you, I'm going to go way back. I'm going to go to Texas State University grad. Walk
yeah,
me through like kind of your path from there up through your marketing journey to Fusion.
yeah. So I've been at FusionAuth now for a little over like a year and a half, almost 2 years, and so had a career that started outside of college there at Texas State, and ended up working for a few different startups in Austin. Liked the fast-paced culture, liked the mentality of getting my hands dirty, showing my impact. That took me to a few different roles, doing marketing operations and campaign management at a large semiconductor company. Took me back into the startup world where I ended up growing and becoming my first head of marketing at a company called Outbound Engine. Then became head of marketing at a company called Pushnami that was in the ad tech space. And then I kind of felt the COVID burnout like a lot of people, and decided to build my own product. And it was a real estate kind of stealth thing that I spun up and got bootstrapped it, got it to almost 10K in MRR, and then spun it out before I officially launched it. And so what I realized is I like building things, and I now wanted to work at a company that allowed me to help other people build really cool products. And that's what brought me to FusionAuth. And it's exciting every day to be able to see the different brands and developers that are implementing us. It's exciting when I go and log into websites. I'm kind of a gamer. So when I log into a gaming company and I'm like, oh, they're using FusionAuth, I can tell. It just excites me to see it out in the wild and to see the people having success using it. So.
And both, so the Outbound Engine and Bushnami, were you like, those were very technical? Like Fusion tends to be more on that technical side. What was that transition like?
Yeah. So I am not a technical marketer by
Sure.
heart. This is definitely a shift. I came in and I was like, so OAuth is not the same as our competitor's name.
Right.
And it took me a lot to kind of, ramp up on the technical side, but, I had that core marketing and foundation, was able to apply that. But it's exciting because I feel like every day I learn something new, and at a job where I'm doing kind of a vertical that I'm really specialized in.
Yeah.
It's not as big of a challenge every day. And I get excited to like, we're digging into like WebAuthn and passkeys on the marketing side. And it's exciting just to see how the relaying parties work and all this stuff, and start to understand how these core technologies that are adding so much value to our customers are working.
I always find it like fascinating where people's journeys kind of go through and like where you end up. And like, I would imagine when you were back at Texas State, not in your wildest dreams where you're like, I'm going to work for a login company one day.
Probably not. I mean, I think even back then, right, the iPhone started and it was like,
Yeah.
oh, you can actually log in with like your phone to different applications. And, I think all this industry is still evolving so much too. So it's exciting to see where it's going.
Yeah, I loved that you mentioned like the fast-paced nature of VC and like small kind of startup companies and stuff like that. So it's exciting to be part of that too. And we're what, 35-ish people now,
Just
somewhere around.
about.
And
Yeah.
it's kind of crazy, like, so many hats are worn still, but, like, growing like
Literally.
crazy. It's awesome. I just saw sales leads pop in and kinda some, deals were made even today right before the holidays, so super
Oh, that's
exciting.
great. Yeah, that's great. I didn't see that, but yeah, it's great being a small team like we are, because we can all support and help each other and jump into
Yeah,
projects as needed, and there's not a lot of red tape in the middle, and
exactly.
that's what's awesome.
So let's get into it a little bit. We're kind of 3 weeks ish out from AWS reInvent. And I'll let you kind of talk through this, but like when we talk pre-event planning, how many months did you have to start with planning for AWS reInvent?
Yeah. So unlike a lot of other big shows, AWS doesn't even allow you to like purchase your booth spot until maybe about 8 months before the show
Oh my
happens.
gosh. Okay.
So at other shows, as soon as like the end of the show happens, they're like, sign on for the
Yeah.
next year, right? So with this one in particular, there's a little bit of a gap there, but we probably officially signed on for our sponsorship this year. I believe it was in March or April. I don't know the exact date.
Sure.
And at that point is when we started to kick off some of our activities or just planning around what we were going to do. What's great, a big show like reInvent, they give you a task list of all the due dates. So we don't have to, on our side, reinvent the wheel. They've given us the structure to, kind of meet along the way. And we then are able to plan along the way. So initially it's kind of just, hey, how much do we want to spend? What's our goals? What's our objectives? And that ultimately determines what we actually want to sponsor at the show. Then we have some, dead periods, thankfully. And then, as we get closer to due dates around booth creatives being due, marketing material review, speaking slot, talking notes being due. That tends to happen in about the like 2 to 3 months right before the show. So it's definitely one of these big shows has a multi-month carryover for us though before the
Yeah.
show itself.
And we start when you're talking about like budget planning and things like that for like there's booth design, there's booth setup, there's I mean t-shirts. How do you break down like what do we give away? Like 3,000 t-shirts or something like that?
I think so. I think I ordered 3,000 t-shirts and we brought an additional probably like 10 or 15 from the office. So right at 1,000. But
Sure.
it's definitely something that like we have to consider, which is like there's the cost of the actual sponsorship. Then there's the cost of actually executing the show. So if we have to partner with a logistics vendor, if we have to partner with a design firm, if we have to partner with somebody to help us with our swag and materials, there's costs associated with all of that. And so on the marketing side, we do a lot of that planning as we kick off the year to say, we want to do this show. Here's how much we're going to budget for it. There's always, variable costs that go up or down. But one thing we also consider up front is, how many people are we going to send to the show and what's the cost to do that? This year we ended up sending 19 people, which was our biggest show presence ever. So there was a lot more from a planning perspective of just even logistics of like, what does it cost to send 19 people to
Yeah.
Vegas versus, sending 5 or 6 and a smaller crew that, doesn't hit the overall expenses budget as much. So it's
I have to tell you too, I was a little nervous when I like read 19, but then like as the show progressed and like feet are exhausted, I was doing 8.5 miles of walking every single day. So I was like happy that we had so many people.
yeah, I think that's what we've learned over the years. So, I always have a rubric in my mind that if we have like a 10 by 10 booth and it's a multi-day show, I need maybe 2 technical people, 2 sales reps, maybe 1 support and logistics person. We had a 10 by 20 booth this year, and that rubric kind of goes up because you have 2 demo stations, you have conversations that are happening, you have, more t-shirts we're giving away. And so when we mapped it out, we went ahead and kind of just said, let's send a bunch of people and see what our presence is like. And I think you hit on it too, which is in years past, people couldn't take breaks because of the amount of
Right.
people coming up to the booth. And this year, we really wanted to make sure that we had clear shifts for people so they knew when they needed to be there and when they didn't need to be there, whether it was for their own mental well-being to just, go and sit down, take a break, get some water, or to catch up on, day-to-day work that, was getting missed while they're working the shift. So
Yeah, for sure.
I think having that many people this year actually helped that work really well.
Can you take a step back and the like booth design and I want to say setup. So like on the booth design side of things, when you start to work with a company on that design, I assume what's that process like for you and how long does that typically take?
Yeah. So there's a few different ways to go about it. One would be to get a turnkey booth. Most of the large sponsorship vendors or even smaller conferences we go to will have a turnkey option. And what that means is they kind of give you the 4 walls and a demo station, a welcome stand, and you just put your branding on it.
Okay.
And then there are scenarios where you go and actually get a custom booth made. Those are also sometimes templatized from vendors, and then they work with you to actually implement at the show. Given the size of our team and the fact that we don't even really have a big office space to store a booth when we're not using it,
Yeah.
we always tend to default to the turnkey option, which means we select from a variety. I think this year we got 3 options. One had kind of a meeting space where you could have, a table and 4 chairs. Didn't really work out for us because we want people to, come to the Fusion Off booth from all sides. We didn't want to have a lot of meetings at the actual booth itself unless they were just like kind of on-site demos.
Sure.
There was one that had a big storage locker in the middle, which like divided the booth in half. And we were like, well, we could use the storage, but it's an odd experience. And so the one that we ended up choosing was a turnkey booth that had 2 TVs and kind of demo stations with a welcome stand in the front with a full designed wall in the background. And so as part of that, they give you a template, and we have Sean, our designer, who I had a few meetings on. We kind of talked through what graphical elements do we want to add? What's a key message we want to make sure is on the booth? For this audience in particular, are there specific phrases and keywords we want on the booth? Like, we're in the AWS marketplace. Can we put that on there? And so we then submit digital files, and then we show up and we hope it works. Like it's kind of a hit or miss. I think the year before they had messed up our booth and they kind of had to do a quick reprint on it. And so thankfully, like I mentioned, Sean is pretty good about locking down that digital file. And so we get on site and I'm able to verify that it's good to go.
That's awesome. And then I noticed at AWS there's a lot of kind of logistics pieces to it, and people kind of moving things out. Is there a handoff at some point in there where now I need to work with another team to get our floor installed and like the t-shirts delivered? What's that look like?
Yeah. So at a large show like this, there's like handling centers where you can pre-ship a lot of your things in advance and you show up and they're at our booth. So we tend to take advantage of that. So all of our t-shirts, any of our swag boxes, any just like booth things, we will send to that holding floor. They then on site, it'll just show up. And that's through a logistics vendor that we work with. And that's also the vendor that does the booth design. It's the vendor, that I'm like, I need 1-inch padded floors, please. That's a key thing to making 19 people happy. 1-inch padded
Next year,
floors.
maybe a 6-inch padded would be better.
Yeah. And getting us, if we need like a trash can, we need a new chair, we need new storage cabinets. That is an on-site vendor that we're able to work with. Then there are separate vendors for shipping out stuff through freight on the way home. There's separate vendors for lead scanners. There's separate vendor for the AV company that hooks up the television. And so there are a lot of moving parts that go along with it. But I will give credit to reInvent. They do a really great job at keeping sponsors organized, and there's not a lot that I have to go hunt down.
That's great.
They do a pretty good job at telling me, if you need this, talk to this person.
Are you kind of like living in an app? Like, do they provide you something where like you can ping all of these people?
It's not an app, but it's kind of an online sponsor portal.
Okay.
And on site, then they all have people that you can go and find. And so if you saw me at reInvent or Blair, who was helping with the logistics on the marketing side, we would disappear behind the black curtain for a while. That was when we would go and hunt down one of these vendors to help us with a problem at our booth, or help talk through something.
So I think you kind of touched on it for a minute, but I want to talk about like the staff piece of this, the training, the maintenance, all that fun stuff. When we talk about that side of it, like we did a meeting every week for 4 weeks, something like that, leading up to it, and just to get us kind of skilled up, because like DevRel, I'm not sales, but like I need to be able to handle questions and things like that. Well, can you talk through, like, if you're going to a big event like that, what kind of training and things that people should take into account?
Yeah. So I think the key is like understanding first, like, what are your business objectives? So for us, this reInvent is a really great pipeline show for us. And so we wanted to make sure early on that everyone knew how to have a sales conversation, but at the same time also knew how to bring in a technical person to drive that conversation forward, even on site. And so we ended up scheduling about, I think it was like 4 or 5 meetings leading up into reInvent, which happened right after Thanksgiving. So we kind of wanted to make sure we covered everything before people went and had really great food. And those trainings were everything from, what are we doing at the show? And what are the expectations of you? to everything from, hey, if somebody asks about this, here's like a great like an answer to respond.
Sure.
Or if if they say, hey, I'm this type of, developer, here's a great follow-up question for them. Or hey, if you get stumped, it's okay, like turn around and bring somebody else into the conversation who maybe
Yeah.
can help answer that question. And
I definitely did that. Like,
yeah.
Matt, Dan, come here.
Yeah, no, and that's why, having a variety of people. And I think another thing is because, we are a small company, but, a lot of the people at the booth who had also just joined us in the last like 6 months. And this is the first time for them to even get like that stage fright a little bit
Yeah.
of just like, you're going to get people that are going to like ask you questions just to kind of like mess with you,
Yeah.
And when it happens, like, it's okay. Like, and when somebody just gives you the like dead eyes and just walks past your booth, but is staring you in the face, like it's going to happen, but it's okay. And so I think, we just tried to prep people for everything they needed to know about what we were trying to achieve at the show,
Yeah.
what success looked like, and then ultimately enabled them with any questions, any answers, any information that, would help us meet those objectives.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to talk about like the part where you were talking about engaging attendees a little bit and that staring them down and things like that. But I think you have some slides prepared to show off a little bit of what it was like. This might be a good time, you think?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay.
So this is actually our first booth back in 2021. We were a stand in the middle of the sea of
Oh my
big booths.
gosh, this little thing by the pole was it?
That's it. And,
Oh wow.
and
Okay.
so this is actually an interesting way of how we typically approach shows, which is for any new show we attend, we do a smaller presence to vet it out. It gives us an idea of who are the people, what kind of conversations do we have, what developers get really impassioned about discovering us, what any buyers that we potentially find. And so this was our first year at reInvent, and the sea of all these giant
Yeah.
large booths.
See like
And
red hat floating around and
yeah,
everything else.
the
Wow.
AWS simple beer service, back there. This was the Fusionoff booth.
That's
And even
incredible.
from a booth like this, we had so much demand that the next year we said, hey, let's do it. We're going to go up even bigger. And so if you go to the next slide, or I don't know if I can drive.
I can
Oh,
either
sorry.
one. Sorry, I'll let you do it.
You're good. So the next slide. Oh, there I am. And there's our VP of sales, Mark, in the background doing his thing. But we upgraded our booth. We went from a stand, we doubled it to a 10 by 10. And this was a chance for us to give out a bunch of t-shirts. We engage with people. These are people that came to the booth wearing the t-shirts they got in the year before, which was really awesome to see. And that's how impassioned people get about some of our swag, which we repeat every year because it's the thing that people kind of start to know us for.
Yeah.
We call them our money cat t-shirts, at least on the marketing side.
You
And,
call it Money Cat or Cash Cat?
I call it money cat.
Okay, that's good to
Yeah.
know. I keep saying Cash Cat. I even bought the domain for us.
Really?
Yeah.
So I think it's money cat. And we were talking about maybe making a mascot or something one day because it just becomes like, what we say. But, this year, I think took maybe 10 people to reInvent last year and had so many people come up and talk to us that we said, okay, this next year, we're going to go even bigger. And so here in 2023, which was, I guess, just a few weeks ago, we ended up doing a 10 by 20 booth. We went even bigger. We haven't really changed some of our marketing value prop, right? You can see off built for devs by devs. It's on this one too, off built for devs by devs. So from a marketing standpoint, you try to keep it consistent every year while highlighting any key marketing messages we want to get across. But ultimately, we just want to have really great conversations with people. And the thing about this booth in particular, going even bigger meant, okay, hey, there's more space for people to come by. But there were other vendors that had really large booths that didn't have a good amount of traffic. And so
Yeah.
part of that for us was we had a really great location. We had Alex, standing doing his John Cusack impersonation, holding a Nintendo Switch on his head for a while,
It felt like it
highlighting
worked.
our raffle. It did. A lot of people came by for it. We always have t-shirts to give away. We have stickers. We had a lot of just small little, tchotchke things that people who just want to do a drive-by can get and take away. But ultimately, we just also want people to walk away with kind of a smile. So we know that everyone gets tired after a while. They get glossy eyes of like sales pitches, their feet hurt. So we do also do what we call like the dad jokes, which is where we just try to have people like, hey, can I tell you a dad joke? We throw out our dad joke. maybe they don't come to our booth, but they walk away with a smile. And we find that that is just a really great kind of positive reinforcement of the type of conversations that we want to have on site.
Awesome. That's really fantastic. Like kind of going from the tiny booth to what we had this year. It's amazing to be able to go through that. What are some of the learnings? I mean, we talked about a lot, but like from 2021, that booth, what do you think you learned the most from graduating up to what we did?
Yeah. I think the biggest thing is people walk around the show floor not knowing where to go next. And if your booth location's not in a great spot, you will not have people come by your booth. So that's like key takeaway number one. And something we always really strive for, like, where are the walkways people are going to be going? And I have this hypothesis. I haven't really validated it, but it's how I walk shows. It's how, we continue to get booth traffic is people enter and then they follow clockwise. So they go left and then they go around. And
Oh,
so
wow.
if you can be near an entrance or an exit or near where they're making that left-hand turn to go up, that is where the majority of the traffic starts to intersect. And I think, we had a lot of traffic this year from being just in a good location. I think the second takeaway is developers don't want to see boring marketing messages. We are AI for developers. What does that even mean, right? So we try to just be real about what we are. Hey, we're auth built for devs by devs, customer identity. You want to add user login? You want to do stuff like social logins or passkeys? Like, come talk to us. And I think that's kind of a key thing that we've tried to continuously have year over year. And then the third thing is to make sure that everyone that comes by the booth has a smile on their face when they walk away. And so that's kind of our notion of the dad joke. And I'm going to mention it again because I love it, and I'm glad that everyone's bought into it. So
Yeah, you can go check our YouTube shorts. We did some developer interviews of kind of what there's a dad joke that I put together in there that's I think pretty funny. It's
okay,
my wife's favorite joke. So
yeah, I
go
actually think
check
that
that out.
another takeaway is like having you on site this year, Alex.
Yeah,
Being able to take advantage of a show like reInvent, where, like, yes, we want people to come to our booth, but we had a lot of other stuff going on. We had Alex doing user interviews, which not necessarily users, but just developers or other dev roles in the
yeah,
community, and asking them funny questions or auth related stuff. It gave us a library of content to use,
yeah.
and then
One of our biggest questions was about authentication, how to pronounce the JWT, which is pronounced JOT, and a lot of people don't know that. And like, I got some pretty good chuckles out of that. So just being able to like interact with our community of people, it was great. I thought.
yeah. And then we also had a speaking slot this year. So we took advantage of that. That came with our 10 by 20 booth. And so we were able to get Brian, our CEO, to do, I think it was like a 30-minute lightning talk about the history of login. And then we also had our own community party. Running a party at reInvent, there's parties everywhere, and I
Yeah.
think that's something that we're always proud to have a space for, people to come hang out with us. And I think next year we're going to look to do some really cool interactive stuff, especially any kind of activations or stuff like that we can do outside of our booth.
I think we said we had some learnings too about when we ran our party this year. So if you're doing it, make sure it's not like a night where somebody's going to be exhausted right before the other big event that's going on.
Yeah, if you can have your party on the first at any large show
Yeah.
or even a small show, if you can have your party on the first or second night,
And
do it.
everybody's hyped up, right?
By the third night, people are going, "Oh man, my feet hurt. I just
Yeah.
want to go back and order room service and like go lay in my bed."
Yeah.
And I think for us, we were on the third night this year, so we definitely, I think, a learning for next year is try to find a date that can get us in.
Yeah, it's definitely challenging. So like at reInvent this year, like MongoDB, Datadog were some of the big names, and they spent massive amount of money. And they took like the kind of key places all around the show. So definitely as soon as you can, like if you can book those spots and try to grab those before
Yeah.
they do, for
I
sure
think
try that.
I think a key learning that we have. So we've done Top Golf parties 2 years in the past.
Yeah, we were talking
This
about that.
year, this year we just kind of had like a, hey, come hang out with us, free drinks, free food. And one of the things that people look for is all the parties give out free drinks and free food. What's the like fun, cool thing?
Yeah,
And so
little
we're exploring.
differentiator.
Yeah, we're exploring some things next year, like whiskey tasting or any kind of like can we rent out part of the Sphere and give people a bunch of tickets to it and stuff,
Yeah.
and that way we can have more activations and stuff where it's not just necessarily the same party that someone else will get by going to someone else.
I talked the team into going to the Sphere, Emily included. What do you think?
The Sphere was awesome.
Yeah,
I would not go back to see the same show. Um,
agreed.
and it was a little bait and switch because they're like, oh, it starts at 10 and we show up and they're like, oh, the first hour is like the ground floor. Like you're paying to see an AI robot.
Yeah,
And again, we were all exhausted after
right.
a day at reInvent. And so
It
I
was
thought,
kinda like, "All right, on with the show," and they're like, "No, we need to be here so you can buy drinks and food and things, please." I
correct.
was like, "Oh,
I
shady."
And it was, when you go sometimes to like a concert or a sports venue and you're in the nosebleed and you're like, wow, these are really steep. Those were the steepest steps that
Yes.
I've ever seen anywhere. And granted, we were, pretty far up in the
It
top
was
section, but
intense. It was
it literally was one of those moments that I was like, oh, this is like somebody's going to be the Wikipedia entrance one day of like breaking a bone, falling down these steps or something. So
the only thing I can relate it to, I've been on, like, the back row at Tiger Stadium, I'm like, "Please don't push me," like, type of thing over the back. So
yeah,
it was steep for sure.
but the I did appreciate I think was it Google Cloud Platform took the outside of the Sphere and was running competitive ads
Oh,
all day
yeah.
against reInvent. It's like sometimes like good marketing like that just makes me
Yes.
laugh.
Yeah, same. I grabbed a video, I should have played it here, sorry. I'll put that out as kind of a takeaway sooner or later. So for people that are kind of like new to putting on booths, putting on shows, things like that, one of the biggest things is kind of maximizing your sponsorship benefits, right? So how do you actually, for us, for Fusion Auth, how do we equate like we spent X? How do we get that back in ROI? What does that usually look like for some event like this?
Yeah. So going in, we kind of know, hey, if this show is going to cost X amount of money, we need to make X amount in new revenue off of it.
Sure, and
And
for some companies, like, for us, maybe that's 3x, but for a larger company, they need to be, like, 10x, is that kinda
it could be for some. It kind of depends on the goal of your show too. If it's a pure awareness play and you just want a bunch of people to sign up for your product for free, that's
sure,
a little different than, hey, I need to talk to this amount of people, I need to generate this amount of pipeline and ultimately get X amount to close, in whatever time frame. And so for us, we definitely did that calculation before we even, signed on. And as part of that budgeting process was say, hey, do we think this is realistic? And the good news is we had 2 years worth of data to give us that baseline to say, hey, we can actually build on this, we think,
yeah,
right? If we improve this, if we have more conversations here, if we streamline this, talk track or something, we know we can get more qualified buyers,
sure,
who are interested in following up. Um, and I'll shout out, I think, to Kinsley, who's one of our sales reps, who within, I think the same day, we handed out the leads, was able to book a couple meetings. And so, we're always optimistic, and this year is definitely looking to be well on track for our goals.
great,
The things that we have to keep in mind is we went from reInvent to holiday, and so
yes,
we also know that a show like this won't really even come into play until we're talking like 2024 revenue and like end of year 2024.
sure,
So
all set up budgets and all that fun stuff.
exactly.
The not to put you on the spot, but I feel like we had enough success, though, we're probably gonna do more shows than just reInvent next year, is that
We
true?
are. So, we've always tried to find the balance of with our limited team, where can we get either most developer eyeballs or the most, buyer eyeballs, right? And try to
Sure,
find that balance. reInvent for us has kind of been the large show that we do every year.
yeah,
As we go into next year, there's a few other shows that we know have opportunity for both that developer and the buyer side, and we're going to probably take advantage of those. It doesn't mean that we won't do some of our small sponsorships that we've always done, but it means the same level of investment we do into reInvent, we're probably going to do to some of the bigger shows. So it could be Black Hat, Identiverse. There's Authenticate, which is the authentication and identity conference. And so there's a handful of those that we're looking at for next year. Again, with the goal of just, if it helps us grow Fusion Auth and it helps us have really great conversations with developers and buyers, it'd be kind of dumb not to be there.
yeah, for
And
sure. I will say that, as a DevRel, like, we're always putting CFPs in. We always wanna meet people out there. So if you see FusionAuth anywhere, definitely reach out to us. We'll come say hello. We'll meet up. We just wanna chat with devs.
Yeah,
Dan just let me know he got approved for DevNexus Atlanta, so for sure we'll be there. I believe KCDC is approved, but I don't know for a fact on that one. So there's a couple floating around, but we'll keep releasing those in the new year, so you can look out for us and say hello for sure.
yeah.
I got two things left. One's an easy one. Hopefully you can just laugh
Ooh.
at. We've got a comment from our other DevRel. Dad joke: where do you take someone who gets hurt playing peekaboo?
Oh, I'm bad at these.
Me too. Luckily, he gave me the answer, otherwise I
Okay.
would've stumbled.
I don't know. What's the answer?
The ICU.
Because I
Well
see
done. I
you,
see you.
peekaboo.
Yep.
That's a solid one. That's
See,
a
these
solid
are the
one.
jokes you woulda got at AWS, folks. This is
That's true.
fantastic.
I'm looking around because I have a joke book that I literally hand to people and say, memorize a joke now.
Yes, exactly. The last one is kind of if you remember, what was your favorite booth that you saw?
Okay, there were two of them.
Okay.
So I
I'm
think
I'm scrambling to find a photo of mine, so
I think it was at the Wiz booth, and it was like donut shop, like diner.
oh,
It was really cool. That one was really good. And then I think it was Lacework who had a whole Barbie theme. That one was pretty cool too. So a lot of the booths are pretty like standard turnkey booths. A few had like a claw game that was pretty cool. I don't remember what booth it was, but I always love any interactive elements that
sure.
drive people to the booth. And we talked about maybe doing like a Plinko board at our booth, but we didn't have like the space for it in the end. But anything like that that like is a shiny object, my eyes like, ooh, what's that?
So my favorite one, just because of the intrigue, and I can never pronounce it right, was Sync. And so they were doing like spray painting, and I think they were like spray painting hats, I believe, or something like that. And I was like, just anything like that where it's like artistic. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna go see like what's going on over here. I will say the one that caught my eye the most was Datadog though, because they had like a dozen
It,
screens that were 3 feet by like 6 or 8 feet tall. Like they were huge, and you could see like all of their data kind of flowing down. Those booths, I can't even imagine how much they cost, by the way. Like unbelievable.
they're pretty expensive, and some of them you have to be at a certain AWS partner range to even get
Yep.
access to them. But yeah, actually, Datadog had I think they had that big booth. Then they had all their parties. They had meeting rooms. They had another booth that I ran into when I was back talking to a vendor and stuff. So there was definitely some really cool experiences this year.
Yeah, I would say MongoDB caught my eye around more. Like I wasn't as impressed by their booth, but like every time it turned in a hallway and like a like meeting room, whatever, MongoDB was there. It was kind of wild. So
Yeah, I
that's
will.
another thing to think about, like, if you are in the booth space or, like, the event space, if you're buying different areas, look for high traffic, like, it doesn't always have to be a booth, it could be somewhere everyone else is traveling through.
Yeah, MongoDB had a lot of great like hallway signage and stuff,
Yeah.
and that was pretty cool. I think they also at their booth. One of the things that I always love, you're gonna have this at any booth you have, is somebody who just like looks down and wants to know what they can grab for free, right? They're
Yeah.
just like, what is the freebie I can
What's
have?
in my bag? Oh, that was another takeaway, I think we need to give away bags next year. Everyone was needing one by the
Was
time they
needing
showed up.
bags.
Yeah.
Okay,
I think
I
that's
think
a cheap one.
okay. I think there's normally some like free ones, so maybe we just
Yeah.
even get a stack to. But I love it. Let's do it.
That's
But
a good point.
MongoDB had a swag window, so I don't know if you had to like go through their booth, but they actually
Yeah.
like as if you were like checking out of a checking stand or a shopping cart thing. You had to like go and like get your swag from them in the window, and I thought
Yeah,
that
that
was
was
pretty
really
cool.
cool. Very good. Anything I'm forgetting to ask?
I think that's it. I mean,
Alright.
we covered a lot about actually like one thing I'll add is events have been a tried and true marketing channel for a while,
Yeah.
both for that awareness and also just like, revenue side. And when COVID hit, the events industry like slammed to a halt and then everything went online. And then some events started, and then brands from an optic standpoint were like, can we even sponsor these? Is it too early to get out? Right.
Yeah.
I'm thankful to have events back up and running. And, they seem to be, pre-COVID days, but more importantly, brands are making really great big investments in it, which just lets me know that, people attending these shows are also getting a lot of value out of it.
Yeah.
So
There's a lot of people too. It was 60,000-ish. Is that correct?
I think
Somewhere
about
around?
that. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
a lot of people willing to go out. So awesome. Well, we will see you at the next town hall next year in the new year. So happy holidays, everyone. Emily, thank you so much for joining me, and we'll see you around.
Happy holidays. Thanks, Alex.
See ya.
When you build an app, writing a login, registration, and user management system seems simple. But pretty soon you're implementing complex standards like OAuth, OpenID Connect, and SAML. Plus, you'll need to build out additional login features. And don't forget all the acronyms you need to comply with. Secure Auth is not optional, but the time that it takes to build it is. Save time and use FusionAuth. FusionAuth provides authentication, authorization, and user management for any app. It's built for devs to deploy anywhere and integrate with anything in minutes. Seriously, anywhere, anything, and in minutes. FusionAuth installs on any platform, any device, anywhere in the world, including AWS, Azure, Google Cloud, and other clouds. And it scales to hundreds of millions of users. To keep user data safe, FusionAuth provides all the controls you need to manage passwords and comply with security requirements and regulations. When users log in with FusionAuth, they'll see your brand, not ours. Theme login pages, style emails, and localized messages to ensure your brand is front and center. And FusionAuth comes with a pre-built management UI to manage and report on users. So stop grinding on Auth and go build something awesome. Get started using FusionAuth for free. Wait, for free? Are we sure that's supposed to be like that?
Hey folks, I almost forgot one last thing. We have this really cool thing coming up in 2024 called Awesome. Here is the image for it. And so this is going to be an event that we're holding. And I wanted to invite you all to put in your email address and check out these cool little animations as well that are going on. But yeah, come see us at awesome.dev so we can talk all about Auth next year. Thanks so much.